Thank you, Sammy, for inviting me to be here. Thanks to CaSDaR for this opportunity. I'm a professor of computational chemistry at Imperial. I'm also part-time academic director of research computing services, although realistically, over the last couple of years, those roles have swapped round. I feel like a part-time professor and a full-time academic director. Now, we do have a professional services director. We run things very much in partnership at Imperial. Taking on this role was very much a choice. Wasn't 100% my choice. However, it's been a fantastic, some of you know that feeling. It's been a fantastic opportunity to get involved in all sorts of different things, and that includes related issues like sustainability, cybersecurity, building a large-scale fair data infrastructure at Imperial, and also these two projects which I want to talk about, Step Up and Scale Up, both of which are concerned with trying to help us define what digital research technical professional means and understanding whether this is something that those who are digital research technical professionals identify with. Is it just a funder term? Is it something you really identify with? What does it mean, and what extra does it mean that we can do in terms of building something we might call a people infrastructure? Because certainly my experience at Imperial has been we have some challenges getting support for the physical infrastructure for computing and doing something with what comes out of experimental data generating facilities, but the real challenges we have are around people, and actually getting funding for people is our biggest challenge, I would say, at the moment to fulfilling some of our ambitions. So here are two projects connected with dRTPs. I should say at the outset that what our definition of dRTP came from thinking about data primarily, because we had experts in research software engineering. We, like other institutions, have some tradition of developing a central team and also embedded research software engineering. And the PI of the Step Up project, which is a strategic technical platform, is Jeremy Cohen, based in the Department of Computing at Imperial, who's had an RSE fellowship. So he knows something about research software engineering. What we concluded we didn't know a lot about was data. So we thought we should do something about that. Blunder in, see what we can find. We thought we have a central RSE team. What we don't have is a research data engineering team. And that's part of our project, let's say. So Step Up is regional, based in London at the southeast. Imperial's the lead. UCL, through James Wilson and his team, are also a big part of this. And we collaborate with King's and the University of Westminster. It's a strategic technical platform that's meant to do a number of different things. So it's one thing to identify as a research software engineer, but the success of research software engineering, it seems to me, is persuading other people to identify that as well. For it to be recognized, for there to be something that looks like a career, and for there to be a supportive community that could both support but also perhaps challenge about some of the ideas in that community. So we wanted to build something that is not just RSE, but also something to do with data and computing infrastructure, because that's in fact how research computing services at Imperial is organized around these three teams. Yet it seemed to us at Imperial, because we don't really have anything that looks like a research data community, we don't have data stewards yet, and we're slow in the process of building our research data infrastructure, that we needed something in this space. So we should come and find out more about what everybody else is doing. Now, a central part of this is going to be training and skills. This is a work package that James is leading for Step Up, as well as trying to develop recognizable careers that people want. And some difficult stuff around policy and getting institutions to provide those career infrastructures. Now, in terms of training and skills, I think the two contributions perhaps that I've made to Step Up are the first one, which is relatively important, which was to say about 1,000 times, I'm sure we can get this funded somehow. Was, fortunately, successful in the end, didn't leave me looking completely embarrassed. The other is to think about how to come up with simple representations that help us fill in the missing pieces. What's on the top right here, as far as I'm concerned, is not a simple representation. This is what happens if you get a group of intelligent people in a room and say, what kind of skills and attributes would you like to see in someone who's a research data engineer, research software engineer, and how can we attempt to bring these things together? It's too complicated from my point of view. What we came up with instead is the simplest representation that works for me, which is something like a grid. Now, I appreciate that lots of people here have lots of resources that might fit into this grid, and perhaps a more sophisticated version of this that looks like career pathways. This is just meant to be a way to help me and the project team think about what we're going to be doing. Training across 3 pillars: software, data, infrastructure, at different levels, and then using this to try and surface some of the problems that we're going to have. For example, that you might want to train in different ways at different levels. Are there things that you can learn from a training course that might be better taught as some kind of craft apprenticeship? And then to identify what's missing that doesn't already exist somewhere in the community and help to provide it. So we have the resources to do that. I'm very much happy to engage with suggestions for what it is that we should be creating. Now, from my point of view, data presents the challenge, not just because of the lack of that being established, perhaps at Imperial, but also because it could be many different things sat in many different places. Is it data stewardship in the library? Is it the data engineers that we needed to build our fair data repository? Is it indeed all of those things? We need to find ways to encourage and support, provide initial seed funding, which is what Step Up is going to enable us to do. Now, Step Up was funding that came to us. Scale Up is funding that's coming to you from January 2026. Scale Up is a network plus, very much like CaSDaR. Imperial is the lead again. This time it's my project, because again I found myself saying, I'm sure we could find a way to get this funded. But we certainly wouldn't have done that without the collaborators, and that includes Glasgow, Sheffield, who are represented here as well, Queen's University Belfast, and Northumbria. The purpose of Scale Up, which is slightly distinct, is to take some of the developments in terms of training and people support and career recognition from Step Up and bring that to a national audience, and to manage a flexible fund, which is going to be the real challenge in this, because about half of the money available to this project is meant to be distributed throughout the community. So it's not a free-for-all, it's not a completely free swim. We have a target for what we're expecting that funding to be used for. One of the things we're expecting is to build on something we've done several years now at Imperial, and that's have champion schemes. Groups going out into departments for a certain amount of time. Typically at Imperial, those have been PhD students who are interested perhaps in evangelizing the things that they do. For the most part, up until this year, that was software, but it now includes software and data as well. And our plan is to write documents and share that idea with others and scale it nationally. Because what we discovered is that the groups that did that as champions were very good at adapting materials that existed out into the domain, training in the domain. So that's one thing we aim to accomplish. Second thing on the back of this is finding people who might want to become dRTPs as well. So those who do the training in the domain, who tailor the materials that are available, might subsequently discover that this could become an attractive career and therefore scale up the number of dRTPs within the UK. So we have funding for this. We also have funding for placements in central teams, however that's defined. At Imperial, we've defined that as Central Research Computing Services. You might define that in something else. And remember, this can be across software, data, and infrastructure. And we have a number of partners who are going to help us deliver this. So on the bottom here is a sketch of how we imagined dividing up the flexible fund for bids. It is flexible. We're not quite sure how this is going to go down with the community yet. The champion scheme, cohorts of champions, is certainly a key component of this. But what we've imagined is a kind of pipeline that starts with people finding out about dRTP through the opportunity to do a little bit of it, an engagement, and then something they can feed into, which is placements or secondments, which we can also provide funding for. Last thing I wanted to highlight which is perhaps more of an infrastructure thing, and what we discovered when we were putting this training grid together. How do we teach people how to build computing infrastructures? Certainly one of the things we pride ourselves on at Imperial is we have a very well centrally managed professional research computing infrastructure, but how do we create the people who run that? And the way we've thought about doing that is to develop something like small clusters, Raspberry Pi clusters, which can also be bid for, and use that as the basis for some practical training and giving those out to the community, again, as part of bids. And then there will be opportunity to bid for training events and things that really help us to define or perhaps redefine what a research technical professional looks like and what their role is in the university. I'm getting the slightly angry cat, but it's good to finish here and say, please get in touch. Very keen to hear suggestions. You'll be hearing much more from us in the future. Thank you.